My, good, you're here. I am so excited. Guess what? I hope this isn't about your podcast again. Why, did you finally listen to it?
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. The Groomer Next Door production. You're listening to BYOTP Radio. Coming up next, the Groomer Next Door. The Groomer Next Door podcast.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, Pups and Kittens, and welcome to another fun-filled episode of The Groomer Next Door. This is episode 169 with our guest, Ari Solomon. He is with an amazing organization called Mercy for Animals. If you're not familiar with them, well, you will learn a lot about them, and I encourage you to, after the podcast, or even pause the podcast, to go to their website and look at a lot of their videos that they have. With that said, let's dive into our Fact of the Week. Now, Fact of the Week is going to be a little bit different because we have a guest that handles only farm animals. I thought we were going to do a fact that would be reflecting on only that. So the fact is, and if you're having bacon or any pork product, you may want to stop eating for the moment. More than 80% of pigs have pneumonia upon slaughter. The cramped, dirty conditions which pigs are forced to live in on factory farms cause numerous serious health problems which are never treated. Dangerous gases from manure, including high levels of ammonia, cause pneumonia in over 80% of the factory farm pigs entering the U.S. slaughterhouse. You know, we've talked about, you know, our lack thereof farm kind of, you know, even meat consumption, and that's kind of, you know, we're not going to, you know, beat this into the ground of you can't eat meat. That's not what this episode's going to be about. But what it is going to be about is kind of getting an awareness. We're all animal lovers, and with the fact that Sarah and I both actually, you know, save all these dogs and cats' lives, it made us become aware that, oh my gosh, if we're going to save lives, maybe we got to broaden our horizon, right? Yep. So for that's where this whole thing kind of came about, and I have a story to tell, you know, later on in the show after Ari shows up about my involvement with Mercy for Animals. So with that, let's dive into the Weekly Roundup.
The Weekly Roundup, yeehaw.
Alright, on to our Weekly Roundup. And joining me this week is Sarah.
Hello.
Claire, are you going to say hi?
Hello.
Hi, Claire. I'm sorry, I didn't actually say that in the open. I just got started in this, I guess, tantrum and was going. It's kind of like I've been on a microphone all morning, it seems like, so I'm just used to that. I'm adrenaline going. What I'm talking about is we just finished the 3rd annual Tail Trot. That was an amazing event, and I was really honored to be asked to be the MC of that event. So I thank you and Glenda for actually making sure I was the one on the mic.
Yeah, that was pretty much a consensus of everybody wanting to make sure that the person that is on the mic was a little more skilled with the mic. But it all turned out really well. We had more people this year than we had the last 2 years, and I was running around the course in my car. I swear I made like 15 or 20 different laps around trying to find people or make sure nobody's hurt or no one's got a cramp or something like that and they need help.
Or lost.
Oh my gosh, they got lost.
That was a rough one. I mean,
Four people got lost.
2.
4.
4? I only knew 2.
5.
Oh my gosh,
5 people got lost.
Oh no.
One person got in late, so the person didn't get to go with the crowd.
Did they get lost?
The person with the black tank and the gray shorts, they went up towards Casey's General Store, and then came back down, and then ran a bunch of other different ways. He goes, I think it ran about 2 extra miles.
It was 2 miles. Actually, I heard about it. Yeah, it was 2 miles extra.
And then 2 other people finally caught up to where they were supposed to be. But all in all, I think next time we are going to learn to mark the place a little bit better.
You know, I was a little surprised. I had mentioned while I was waiting for everybody to get back, I said, you know, I'm surprised that there isn't kind of a beacon that's inside the numbers, so they're reusable. They're not just a one and done.
Oh yeah, so a little low jack.
A little low jack on it. I thought that was probably something that might be, you know, a thought process. Obviously, you guys don't do the time. It's a third party. But yeah, it was freezing cold out there. I have a few videos.
Freezing cold. I was in flip flops and shorts.
But you were in the car. I was outside. It was an amazing though. It was absolutely amazing.
That looks like Craig in 30 years.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's podcast, nobody can see.
That's good.
So it was fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was, you know, I had a script, and you know, it's funny. Any kind of live production never goes off right. I had people from another, you know, from our third party, you know, and we had other things going. Hey! It's like it was fun. It was fun and kept me on my toes.
Yep. I can't wait to find out how much money Peak Hall has raised for the shelter.
Yeah, all the proceeds are going to the new animal shelter right here in Rolla.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool. I think that the number of registrations were 38 or 39 is what I think I remember. That's what I remember seeing. I had checked on that beforehand.
Yeah, there was a lot. All I know, it was great. We all had fun.
The numbers are going up every year. Now, remember, this is only the 3rd annual, so, you know, it's still a new event right here in town, so it's kind of cool. Next thing, we had taken Bagheera to the vet this week. Actually, ironically, we took Bagheera and Pity to the vet. Pity was going to get a heartworm test, but in some kind of miscommunication, Pity had already gotten its heartworm test when she went in for space. So that was negative. So we're good to go. She's going to have a home here probably by the end of the weekend, which I'm really happy to be able to say. And
I'm hoping it's a coworker of my mom's that she's worked with for a while. They're looking for a dog, and they have a fenced-in backyard.
Which is perfect.
They have a cat, and they have another dog, which Pity gets along with everybody. So it's just now contacting them, doing a meet and greet, and see if it works.
Right. Bagheera got his stitches out. It's so hard to go he, she all the time. He got his stitches out. He was a trooper. Oh my gosh, he was a trooper. He came home and he has been bouncing around.
Yep. His hair's growing back in his little patch.
Yep. And
so he's ready. He's ready to go for.
I think he's ready. Yeah, I think he's now ready. Which is weird. What are we at? 6 months that we've had him? I'd say something
we've
around
had
that.
him for a long time.
Had him for a long time. Yeah.
And then the other situation that came up, the big one that I wanted to talk about.
I forgot. Thank you.
Going through Facebook, you always come across animals in need. But this one's a little different. We react to the urgent.
Right.
The ones that they need something right now. And I came across this post of this guy saying, I have 4 kittens and no mom. I don't know where they're from. I need help. I'm leaving Rolla tomorrow. So I jump on there, finding out what's going on. Come to find out he was in Kentucky doing some work.
Kentucky or Alabama?
Alabama.
Okay.
Doing some work. And he had his camper.
Yeah.
And so as he was coming home, he doesn't know between Alabama and Missouri. It's been about 4 days. But the mom must have been left in one of the states. So he's got 4 orphan kittens that are screaming for help. And he doesn't know what to do with
If
them.
you don't know what we're talking about, you go to our Facebook page, the Groomer Next Door podcast, and you can see videos. We've been going live quite a lot. Haven't been able to do it the last couple days, but we were going live there every day a couple times. They're doing great. The gray ones were...
Yeah, the gray ones weren't moving much. There was
Right.
2 gray kittens that are just absolutely gorgeous, but they weren't moving. They weren't doing anything. They were just almost lifeless. So it took...
A day?
Yeah, it took them getting warm because kittens can't regulate their temperature. So we had to get them warmed. And we fed them, and oh boy, did they come alive.
Fast.
Yes, they came right back.
Right.
So now we got 4 healthy kittens. One's got a little bit of an eye infection I gotta get taken care of.
But we'll handle... That'll be dealt with by tomorrow.
Yeah. I just gotta get the ointment.
I
And
keep
good to
saying
go.
Sundays are my off day. I don't do anything on Sundays. And yet, it
Sunday.
seems like Sundays I have to rush out and, yeah.
So we're gonna be trying to find rescue once they're strong enough to handle it.
I think they're ready.
Well, most people won't
Bottle.
ask for bottle feeding kittens
I got another
if
week
someone's
or
already
two.
taken them. Yeah.
Oh.
They need to start eating on their own before we can find a rescue. And we're right in the middle of starting kitten season.
But we
so-
gotta hit this now, or we're gonna be in last year's trouble.
Yep.
All right. So that takes care of the housekeeping of what's been going on with us before, when we're not on the microphone. So let's actually move on to our great guest, Ari Solomon from Mercy for Animals.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast. Viewer discussion is advised.
I am so glad this week we are joined by Ari Solomon. He is in charge of communications for Mercy for Animals, an amazing organization that just continues to amaze me. I have seen so many different videos from you. You guys have changed the way I look at all my food. So I have to say thank you for making the time and being on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, trust me, the honor's all mine. I want to start by, getting to know you a little bit. We're going to learn a lot about Mercy for Animals, but I like to know about the person I'm talking to. So tell us all about yourself.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I oversee communications at Mercy for Animals. I have been involved in animal rights for about 10 years. I grew up on the East Coast, spent some time in New York City, then moved out to Los Angeles. And yeah, about 10 years ago, I was actually watching The View, of all things. And Alicia Silverstone was on, and she was talking about why she was vegan, and her journey to it. And she said, one day she was just on the couch with her dogs, and she loved her dogs. And she said, I thought, if I'm going to eat animals, why don't I just eat my dogs?
Right.
Like, what's the difference between a dog and a cow and a dog and a pig? And I had never thought of that before. I've lived with animals my whole life. I had never thought to equate the animals that we eat to the animals that we live with in our homes. And so after the show, I Googled Alicia Silverstone and veganism, and basically one thing led to another, and I was very soon watching videos, undercover videos of how animals are treated before they reach our plate on modern-day farms, and I was so horrified. And so I went vegan overnight, and then in the months that followed, I really just consumed any sort of media that I could. I got a bunch of books just regarding how we treat animals, and I uncovered this whole world that's really hidden from a lot of people. I mean, I think the industries do this on purpose, and the more I read, the more it confirmed that what I was doing was absolutely the right decision, and I was very happy to continue down, like I said, down that path, and then I got more involved with animal rights, and here I am today.
It's funny how that can actually work. You could just be watching TV and you see something and think, I'm almost in the same boat as you are. You guys were the one who did the Tyson chicken, and I saw that, and the injections of the horse growths that you were showing that were being injected, and how it would change everything, how chicks were being injected and mutated in a sense. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then, it went on, and here's a guy who would eat, pretty much anything. I mean, if it was a burger, I'd eat it. If it was whatever, I'd eat it, pretty much. And then I started to watch these things and kind of follow you guys, and really want to be a part of it. And I was just like, this is kind of crazy. I'm originally from Los Angeles, so I kind of did the reverse transplant type thing, where I went from Los Angeles to the Midwest instead of the other way around. And you come here and it's everybody wants to eat beef, everybody wants to eat pork, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I've seen too many things to be able to do so. And it's like our fact of the week. We do a fact of the week, which I had already talked about at the beginning of this episode, but it was something like 90% of pigs actually have pneumonia by the time that they're actually slaughtered. And that just kind of threw me like, oh my gosh, no wonder I don't eat pork. And the closest I have is cage-free chicken, and it has to be a specific fish that has to be freshly caught. And it's like, that's where I'm at. I like to actually reduce it to even less. And it's crazy what you guys have done. It's the awareness. I appreciate it to no end. I think it's great.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I mean, I think that what Mercy for Animals, the organization that I work for, what we're most well known for, I believe, are the undercover investigations that we do. And to date, we've done over 50 undercover investigations, most of them in the United States, but we've also done investigations in Canada and now in Mexico as well. And each and every time we go into these factory farms and slaughterhouses, we uncover abuses that shock and horrify people. Mm-hmm. And the sad reality is that a lot of the things that we uncover in these videos are considered standard practice in the meat, dairy, and egg industry. Things like grinding baby male chicks up alive because they'll never produce eggs and are considered worthless to the egg industry. Things like castrating baby pigs without any painkillers. Things like chopping off the tails of cows exploited for dairy. Mm-hmm. These are all practices that we've documented. And like I say, they horrify people, but they're considered standard industry practice. So I do think that these videos are hugely instrumental in getting people to not only change the way they eat, but also get the industry itself to change. And we've seen that happen over the years as well.
And I know exactly which videos you're talking about, because I saw those same videos and I couldn't believe it. There was one, and I'm sorry, I don't exactly remember all of it. I just can remember the actual site, but there was a cow. I think it was a dairy cow, as far as I know, and it was chained and kind of hung by its back hooves and legs upright. Mm-hmm. And the people were finding it to be funny, and I'm thinking to myself, that's not funny. There's nothing funny about this. I one of the side things, and I'll say it since we're recording. I'll still say it there. I wanted to be one of the investigators, and I was actually working on becoming one of your investigators a few years back. One of my big things, and even my wife said, I don't know if it's a good idea. You may actually just snap and say, no, this isn't going to happen, and completely reveal yourself. And I want to believe that I would actually be able to encounter, all this stuff and be a good investigator, get it on film. But the other part of me is like, it takes a strong will not to want to just snap and say, are you flipping nuts? What are you doing? This is a life.
The bravery and the courage that it takes to be an undercover investigator is just, I couldn't do it. I think that it's so commendable and admirable, because these are people that really, obviously, care about this issue. Many of these people are animal rights activists, themselves before becoming undercover investigators, and they have to watch this and document this, and of course they can't reveal themselves or else that footage will never see the light of day.
Right.
So it's a very difficult job. It's, you have to, I'm sure, somehow psychologically compartmentalize what's happening so that you can make sure to document what you need to document, but also keep yourself hidden.
Right.
So it's, my hats are off to these people. I mean, if it wasn't for their work, really, we wouldn't know what's going on inside of the nation's factory farms and slaughterhouses. It's not like you can just roll up to a factory farm and say, "Hey, I'd like to take a tour."
Right.
These factories are in very remote parts of the country. These are like vast, like windowless sheds. The practices are by and large hidden from the public view. So really, we have them to thank for even knowing what's going on inside these places.
I'm with you. So let's go back to the origin of Mercy for Animals. How did it get started?
So Mercy for Animals was founded in 1999. Our co-founder and president, Nathan Runkle, at the time was a high school student. And what happened was he was growing up in a rural part of Ohio, and there was a high school in his community that was doing dissection. And one of the teachers brought in dead baby piglets from his farm for the class to work on. And when he brought the piglets in, one of the piglets was still actually alive.
Oh, wow.
So the story is that he did this, and I think another student did this in the class. They actually grabbed the piglet that was still alive, and they picked the piglet up by his hind legs and slammed him against the floor, his head against the floor. Now, this is a standard industry practice in the pork industry called thumping, and it's to basically kill baby piglets who are either sick or not growing fast enough. And so this was what they do on the farm. And so they did this in the classroom, and the other students were so horrified in the class, they went to the principal. It was investigated. It was sent to a court where a judge, based on, whether this was animal cruelty, not animal cruelty, the judge actually ruled that it wasn't animal cruelty because he said this is standard industry practice on pork farms. There's nothing cruel about it. And Nathan had been following the story and reading about it, and when he read about the story, he realized something needs to be done. This is unacceptable that you can pick a piglet up in the middle of a classroom in front of a bunch of students by its hind legs and smash it against the floor head first. It's unacceptable. Okay. So he started Mercy for Animals as a small local group in Ohio. It grew from there. Then he moved to Chicago and continued to grow the group for many years. And then about 4 years ago, moved our headquarters to Los Angeles, where we continue to grow. So from this small local group in Ohio, we're now an international organization with over 100 employees. We operate in the United States, Canada. We have boots on the ground in India, Mexico, Brazil, and Hong Kong as well. And it's a very exciting time to be doing this work because there's just been so much awareness and so much change. And I credit really social media and the rise of social media to a lot of it. And I think that people are talking about these issues and really considering these issues, meaning issues specifically facing farmed animals, differently than they ever have before.
Now that brings up a question. I didn't even ask you this one because when you mentioned Hong Kong, it just dawned on me. Now, what about the dog festival in Yulin? Has that been something Mercy for Animals has been involved in?
We haven't been involved in that. I know that there are many groups that are working to end it. It's absolutely appalling, and the images coming out of Yulin are just, it's completely shocking. And I think it's obviously very, very disturbing, because whereas many people don't necessarily look at cows and pigs and chickens and turkeys the way I do, or the way many people are starting to, dogs and cats, it's a different story. These are animals that live in our homes. These are animals that we're considered part of our family. So we're not working on that issue just yet. We're focused on animals that are raised and killed for food, and typically that doesn't involve dogs and cats, although in certain parts of the world they do eat those animals. So, but I do follow that story personally, and like I said, I know there are many.
Oh, just had a little technical difficulty, but we're back. So yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, there are a lot of different great groups that are in Yulin. You're right, and I do understand the whole idea that dogs and cats. I mean, India, the Middle East, there's Asia. I mean, they'll eat dog, and that just still bothers me. I mean, I guess the same thing bothers me about eating dog and cat is the same thing that bothers me about how cows are put down. It's just such a cruel way. So I don't know. They're all passionate. I'm passionate about all of it, and it's something that. I don't know. I mean, I won't eat lamb. I mean, I just think it's all just cruel. And you guys, I gotta give you guys the credit. I mean, you really did open my eyes to it.
I mean, I'm so happy to hear that. And I think that, like I said, I think there's a lot of people out there like you who are really just starting to see this stuff for the first time. And you kind of go, like, kind of the way I did. You kind of go, like, I don't want to support industries that do this to animals. Yeah. Because it's true, like what happens in Yulin is so awful, but when you think in terms of suffering, kind of like what I'm going back to what Alicia Silverstone said on that show many years ago, it's like, in terms of suffering, a cow suffers the same as a dog or a pig and a cat. It's really all the same. So I know that as a culture, we tend to look at those animals differently, but really, there's not that much difference there. And certainly, farm animals deserve our consideration as much as the dogs and cats we love at home.
I agree. I mean, I know we're never going to stop people from wanting to eat, beef or pork, or I understand that can't be changed, and that should be, a right. I don't have any problem with it. But come on, there has to be a humane way where it's, I don't know how. Because I'm not a scientist. I'm not somebody who's like, oh, well, you can easily. But there has to be a way. I mean, I'm sure everyone.
Well, I think I actually think that what gives me hope for the future right now is there's lots of people in the technology world, really in the tech world, who are working on ways to produce meat that actually doesn't involve animal slaughter. There's companies like Memphis Meats, for example, that are growing meat in vitro. And I think that, we're still in the beginning phases of this. There's also companies working on creating meat using plant-based foods. And what they've been able to do, a lot of the plant-based foods are obviously readily available. It's really impressive. I have absolutely fooled more than a handful of meat eaters with some of for example, the plant-based chicken that's on the market. It's really, really well done. It tastes just like chicken, and there's no animal. There's no animal involved. So I think the future of food, we could be looking at a world where there are no longer animals being slaughtered for things like beef, especially if we're talking about, like I said, these companies working on producing beef, chicken, without slaughter by, these culture techniques that they're using. I think that we might be looking at a world where no animals have to suffer for this stuff, and people don't have to suffer flavor either because they're essentially eating the same thing. So that gives me a lot of hope looking towards the future. The other angle to look at with regards to meat, dairy, and egg production is that it's just environmentally unsustainable. I mean, we now have unrefutable evidence that animal agriculture is one of the leading causes of climate change. So finding other ways to create these, foods, I think will not only benefit animals, but just benefit the planet at large.
I'm not gonna argue it. And as for your whole thing with different foods that are almost kind of being shaped in a sense into what looks like meat, I want to say it's in Los Angeles. Just because being from there and seeing different things from Los Angeles, there's like a tofu that looks like a steak, but is actually tofu and it grills up like steak. And I wish I had more information in front of me about it, but as you were talking about it, I was thinking, I read something about it. It's like a full-on kind of deli type place that you can go into, and you would think that you're buying pork, you're buying beef, you're buying chicken, but it's actually tofu, and it tastes the same. So,
well, I've had some plant-based meats. There's a couple companies that do it really well. There's a company called Gardein, and Gardein is really available at supermarkets all over the country. There's also a company called Beyond Meat, same thing, it's pretty widely available. And they're able to create the texture and the taste of meat using plants, using things like soy, peas, wheat. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, the stuff is really, it's uncanny. It's extremely impressive. And like I said, I fooled my father. And my father is nowhere close to being a vegan or a vegetarian, and he loved this stuff. And it's widely available. So if you're looking for the flavor or the taste, look, I grew up eating meat, dairy, and eggs just like most people. And I don't have to suffer flavor at all. I can go to the supermarket and get these plant-based meats. I can buy vegan ice cream that's incredible nowadays. Even Ben & Jerry's is now doing, I think, 6 flavors of vegan ice creams. Some of the vegan cheeses on the market are just incredibly delicious. So really, I don't feel like I have to miss anything. There's so many great products out there these days.
Sometimes I wonder, though, and I'm in the Midwest, from experience, sometimes the Midwest can be a little bit harder to get these things. It does have a challenge, and I've talked to people from the West Coast to the East Coast, and currently in the Midwest, and everybody says the same thing. It's a tidal wave. The trends that are going from the East or West, that takes a while until it hits here. And that's the hard part about it. That is the big part. Especially if you're in a rural area. I'm more in a rural area than in a big city. So you don't have, shocking as it may be, we actually are just going to get a Starbucks for the first time in this town, and in their history, first time maybe by the end of the year. That's crazy to me. Because I'm sure I know what it's like to drive to Los Angeles. You can't do 2 blocks without a Starbucks. I didn't think that was possible. And when I came here, I was like, what? Are you kidding? So getting those things, getting anything that's vegan it almost has that, ooh, no, we're not those types of people, and a stigmata of its own kind. Personally, I would and that's just me, like to have more of a vegan base just because I don't want to think that my food was tortured. But again, personal opinion. Even in rural areas, you can still do a lot of basics. Like, I do a lot of rice and beans. I do a lot of salads. I do pasta. I do all sorts of stuff that isn't like the specialty foods that we were talking about just a second ago, but things that really anyone can have access to. I do get emails from people all over the world who are vegan or vegetarian, and it's just incredible. I got an email a couple of weeks ago from someone in Lithuania who's been a vegan for like 5 or 6 years. And so I always tell people, if you can be vegan in Lithuania, I'm pretty sure you can do it anywhere. So even if you don't have access to those plant-based meats or the vegan cheeses or the ice creams, there's still a lot to choose from. And you can get creative with it. And so I think that I think it's just a question of
like they say, like with anything, it's like, when you form a new habit, it becomes almost second nature. And I think it's like once you start eating a certain way, once you've been doing it for a little while, it just becomes like nothing.
I agree.
And it really does. It becomes easy. I was just having lunch with someone and talking about that, about how you don't have to think about it anymore. I do agree, though, living in Los Angeles, I mean, we are a little spoiled out here when it comes to, when it comes to that. It literally, I mean, every other block is a vegan restaurant, and then in between there's a Whole Foods.
I was going to say
it's like, it's really, I don't take that for granted. I know that we have a lot of options out here compared to other parts of the country, for sure.
And I mean, I've been to Chicago. Chicago's also the same way. They're well supported. Again, you're going to find it in more of a metropolitan. Well, I haven't seen a Whole Foods in 7 years, and it's a very hard thing to not be in. And for anybody who hasn't been in a Whole Foods, boy, you're missing. Oh boy, you're missing out. So let's dive into how Mercy for Animals gives the voice for the voiceless. And we had mentioned it earlier, but a little bit of the detail what an undercover investigator actually is and what they do.
Sure. So these are very brave individuals that get hired at slaughterhouses and factory farms, and they go to work just like everyone else does and does their job just like everyone else there does, except they're wired with a hidden camera. And so all they're doing is coming to work and documenting what takes place during the day. So they go to work, and then when they come home at night, they take the footage and they catalog it. And then once they've spent a certain amount of time on a farm, we will then take the footage, edit it down, because there's hours and hours of footage, into a video that we'll then release to the public. And this is, we do this for a variety of reasons, but we're doing this to first raise awareness about how animals are treated on modern-day farms, but then also use the video to encourage companies that are either buying products from these farms or owning the farms themselves to change, to push them to adopt better animal welfare standards. And it really works. Once people see these videos, like I said, they are horrified, they are outraged. We've had many petitions over the years that have gotten hundreds of thousands of signatures. If there's one thing that people can agree on, and I know how divided we are as a country, but if there's one thing people can agree on, it's that animal cruelty is wrong. And when you look at this footage, there's no way you can look at it and say that this isn't animal abuse. True. It absolutely is. So, yeah, so I think that the undercover work is really just one of the most useful tools we have as people who care about animals to get people to wake up and change.
I just have one reason why I would be terrible as an undercover. I would be editing the video at night and being, okay, well, this is a good shot. Let's do this. Let's do some edit here and make sure that this. I would be doing the edits for you. I mean, you would have dailies that would be edited just like a movie. That's how bad I think I'd be like, no, we got to get this thing down. This is going to be a really short doc that I'm going to put together for you. You guys would be like, enough. Okay, this isn't a Hollywood production. Okay, Chris, let's get this thing simple. So and anybody who knows me knows the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, he's so like that. So I apologize for that one. Let's move on to legal advocacy.
Sure. So we do have a legal department, and essentially they do a couple different things for us. When we uncover animal abuse in videos, which we do often, stuff that's outside of what's considered standard industry practice, we want to make sure that the laws that are on the books get enforced. Right. So our legal department works with local law enforcement to make sure that people are charged with animal cruelty if they're actually abusing animals on tape. And so we have had workers charged and convicted with animal cruelty because of our investigations. The other thing that they do is they work with lawmakers to try and introduce and support bills that improve animal welfare standards on farms. We've also worked to help oppose bills that harm farm animals. You know, one of the things that we've been really battling with in the last couple of years are these ag-gag laws, which I don't know if you've been following, but essentially why they're being passed is to thwart undercover investigations. Mm-hmm. They are laws that say that it makes it illegal to film where people are hurting animals on factory farms. It makes it illegal to film there. And I think these ag-gag laws are the industry's reaction to the proliferation of these undercover videos, and not just the proliferation of the videos, but how viral they go on social media.
Right.
I do credit social media for a lot of the recent changes that we've seen and a lot of the awareness, because, you know, if it was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, I would have had to have given you a DVD to watch, and then you would have had to have watched it and then pass that DVD on, and then you got to print the DVDs, and like, you know, I mean, what are we? There's the dissemination of the information is a lot harder, whereas now, within a matter of seconds, thousands, millions of people can see undercover video. I mean, we've had undercover videos on Facebook that have been seen by 8-9 million people, just one video.
Yes.
And in the course of like a couple days. So information is getting out there much wider, much quicker, and I think it's scaring the industry, because when people see how modern farms treat animals, they're against it, and they demand change. So I do credit social media for a lot of that, but I think that these ag-gag laws are a direct reaction to the fact that people are waking up, and they don't want undercover investigators in their facilities, so they're trying to make it illegal. And sadly, these laws have passed in several states that are, you know, by and large farming states.
Well, yeah, but when you get the big companies, I can see how they can actually, you know, dictate the law. We've seen it with pet food. We've seen it with anything that has big money. They can dictate the law into whatever they want. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, but our legal department has really been working hard to create awareness in states. I mean, when people understand what ag-gag laws are, they're against them. People in this country are overwhelmingly for things like transparency and honesty.
Right.
And these ag-gag laws fly in the face of that. So we have had some success with getting citizens in certain states to oppose these laws, but sadly they have passed in other states as well. We just had one that recently passed in Arkansas and actually just got signed into law last week.
Ooh. Well, I'm not entirely surprised. Unfortunately, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised Missouri doesn't become another one, and Oklahoma, just because we're so connected. That's an unfortunate side, too. And of course, you know, I think we all pretty much know, but I'll give you the opportunity to explain it, but corporate outreach.
Oh, yeah. Our corporate outreach department is fantastic. They work with companies to try and urge them to implement animal welfare reforms within, you know, their corporate policies, and they've had so much success in the last year or so. They specifically, in the last year, had a huge push to get companies to stop employing the use of battery cages for egg-laying hens. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if many listeners would know, but how most eggs are produced in this country, hens live in battery cages, and they're literally given the space about the size of a sheet of paper.
I was going to say iPad,
to live out their whole lives.
Yeah,
and they can't spread their wings. They're walking on mesh wire. They'll never see the sun. They'll never feel the grass. So they did a huge push in the last year, and we got several huge companies. I mean, I don't know if in 10 years there won't even be battery cages in the country anymore, just because of the work that corporate outreach has done. But I'm talking huge companies like Costco, Target, to get them to ban battery cages for the eggs that they sell. And now they have started working on getting companies to adopt better welfare standards for broiler chickens. So these are chickens raised and killed for meat, which are arguably, probably I would say chickens are the most abused animals on the planet. So they've also started having success here as well, getting companies to commit to animal welfare standards for broiler chickens. Broiler chickens and chickens used for eggs are two different breeds. So the issues are slightly different, even though it's like the same species of animal. So they've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years on these issues.
And that's one thing. Excuse me. It's one thing I did notice. About my daily kind of, I wouldn't say daily, but my consumption of chicken, and that was, you would tell what was mutated chicken, abused chicken, just by the fact that it was so gamey and it just wasn't good. And it became to that point where I'm like, I just, even down to a fast food place that's all about chicken, you knew what kind of chicken it was just because of the way the chicken tasted and how it was, which prevented me from even eating there. And it was, I think I most likely was watching a video you guys had produced, and I'm like, okay, well, any kind of eggs I have are cage-free anyway. All my chicken was always cage-free. But then I started to realize, oh wow, now I understand why if I went to this fast food place, there was something wrong with that chicken. It almost didn't feel like it was chicken. It felt like it was something else. And that's the problem. I've seen the videos on the cages, and you said piece of paper, I was thinking iPad mini, and you just think to yourself, can you imagine living in that cramped condition? All you're there to do is push an egg out. What kind of life is that? It's just awful.
Yeah, some of the footage from our egg investigations is really some of the toughest footage that I've seen, just because the conditions are so deplorable, and you can just tell how miserable these animals are. So yeah, it's very sad. But the thing is though, eggs are a very easy thing to not have in your diet, and there's so many great alternatives to eggs. You can bake without eggs. It's super, super easy. So I would say, if you watch these videos and you're upset by them, we have a great website. It's called chooseveg.com. We have so many tips and recipes, and you can just pour over this website, and you can start by reducing and just take it from there,
Right. I'm with you on that. I'm completely there. I do think that people are going to start to make that more of a choice as time goes on. I think we're in such a knowledge-friendly kind of era. Even down to 10 years ago, as you were saying, everything's at our fingertips. Or even 10 years ago, wasn't this accessible. You'd still have to have a laptop or a computer. We didn't have tablets. I look at my daughter, and I go, you're 8. You really don't know anything that's not a smartphone or a tablet. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we're very, we live in a time where at a moment's notice, no matter where we are, we have access to really any information we want. And I think it's a huge service.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I'm with you on that. Now, how does Mercy for Animals find out about these farms inflicting inexplicable abuse on the animals?
So, all of our investigators, we don't target specific farms or find out about the farms beforehand. They get hired at wherever they can across the country. And like I said, each and every time they get hired and they document what happens, we uncover animal abuse. And I think one of the reasons why is because a lot of the abuses we uncover are standard industry practices. So even though the industry doesn't consider them to be abusive, they're absolutely cause unimaginable suffering. So it's not like we get tips saying like, hey, there's this farm over here doing crazy stuff. You guys should go investigate. Our investigations choose the farms at random.
I didn't know that. I always wondered that. That was always something I was wondering. It's like, okay, I always thought an investigator would say, okay, you're going to Des Moines, Iowa, and you're going to go to this farm on this day, and we've already got you an interview, or we already got you the job. I never knew. I was always kind of like, huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yep.
All right. Well, that makes more sense. So, it makes a lot more sense. Now, I was looking on the website, and I saw this factory farming from hell. And I was like, I have to ask. You know, obviously, I think from our conversation, I think we kind of have that basis already. But please elaborate. Maybe there's something else that I missed.
Are you talking about the websites? I think you're talking about the corporate work that we're doing. No,
it said
I know.
factory farming from hell. And I was just like, is there something more on that? I mean, I know that the deplorable conditions are bad. I've seen, you know, all these, you know, just explicit things, but I wasn't sure, was there something else, or was that just kind of, in a sense, kind of the chapter in review, in a sense?
I think that's what it was. I know we've had several online campaigns targeting companies, and I know we've used things like pen hell and stuff like that to depict the way that that chickens were being abused in the egg industry.
Yeah.
So I think it might actually be referring to some of our corporate campaigns that we've run in the last year and a half.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that has always I've never been able to figure this one out. And I'm not, you know, I'm not on these farms. I'm not hearing these stories like you are. But the question is why are animals on farms, especially chickens, why are they, you know, I've seen it with piglets too. I've seen it, I guess you could say, I've seen your video, I've seen so many of your videos, and I've noticed that they all seem to be confined. Why? I mean, is it a space issue? If we confine them, we could put an extra 3 into the farm, or why do they confine them like that?
Well, more animals, more meat, more profit, right? So these farms are trying to maximize the amount of animals they can put in a certain space to maximize their profits. And confining the animals helps create that, you know, helps keep them all in place and whatnot. So, for example, you know, battery cages, gestation crates for pigs. These are, you know, systems of confinement that cause immense suffering. But sadly, I guess if all you care about is the bottom line, this is how you pack as many animals as you possibly can into a space.
Right.
It's sad. It's sad because essentially what the industry is doing is reducing these animals, like I said, that are just as sensitive as the dogs and cats we love at home, reducing them to meat-producing machines.
Yeah.
And they're not, you know, machines. These aren't automatons. These are sentient, feeling beings who can suffer.
Of course, my nerdy side comes out and says, now, you know, what about, you know, in 30 years we have robots and we start worrying about actually their feelings, you know, this artificial, you know, I obviously I'm one of them. I'm just a nerdy person who, you know, likes sci-fi and loves animals, and I'm just thinking when he said, but I just was like, I'm sorry, I went off the beaten path, but you know, I do that very easily, you know. I mean, you can relate to this, right?
I'll come back on another show and we can talk about the future of AI.
Oh boy! I mean, you know what? It's true though. I mean, yeah, yeah. It's part. I think that's part of the culture of living in Los Angeles too. You really have to be into. You almost kind of are groomed into it. I don't know why. It's in the water, maybe. I don't know.
But going back to what you said, I mean, you know, I mean, I definitely think that, you know, that's a discussion to be had, but we know at this point, you know, from the research that's been done on animals, that animals can feel pain.
Oh, yeah.
Animals can be depressed. Animals, I mean, I always think about this. I live with 2 cats, and one of the first things a vet will ask you when something's wrong with your animal is, how are they behaving? Do they seem depressed? Are they like whatever? And it's like, so there's this overt acknowledgement that animals have an emotional state. And this is true for all animals. So when I think about, and I think the public at large, when we think about the way that modern farming treats animals, it's unimaginable. And it needs to change. And I think that, like I said, people are absolutely waking up and demanding that companies that do this to animals start treating animals better. And I think also it's causing a lot of people to either reduce or to stop consuming animal products.
Well, this is not the first stab at, being vegans or talking about, being a vegan on the podcast. We did a whole episode on it, whether it started with clothing, nutrition, even down to, building materials in your house. We went over a full scale over this, and it's like, and when you're really conscientious, you're really conscientious. Or, you're half in, you're a quarter in, you're all in. It's just, it's how much you want to be committed. And look, I mean, I'm not going to be the person to say anybody's right or wrong. I just want people to be as much informed as possible.
Yeah, and I think I always tell people, like, doing something is so much better than doing nothing.
Yeah.
So even if you feel like wherever you are in your life, even if you feel like, I can't commit to 100% vegan right now, or I can't, then that's okay. Start somewhere. Start by doing Meatless Monday, for example, or do what that famous New York Times writer Mark Bittman does, where he goes vegan before 6 o'clock. He does vegan all day, and then after 6 o'clock, he's not vegan. Or, I mean, every little decision that we make adds up to big changes. And so I like to encourage people wherever they are to just do something and then take it from there. Then do a little bit more and a little bit more. And before you know it, who knows? But I think that encouraging people to make changes, no matter how incrementally small they are, I think it's very important.
I agree. And by the way, great Paul McCartney drop. That was a good one. Give you that one. Yeah, I picked it up and I was like, good one. That was a good one. Let's dive over to, a real, again, nothing about this is, pretty or sweet. It's all pretty gruesome, but the mutilated animals. Mutilated animals. That one was not coming out of my mouth at all. If I wanted to, it wasn't coming. But you had mentioned already, ripping off pigtails. There's so many different things about it. I'm going to give you the mic for that one.
I mean, sadly, mutilations are very common. They're considered standard industry practice on factory farms. So I talk about mutilations. It's basically, yes, for example, chopping piglets' tails off without any anesthetics, castrating piglets, chopping cows' tails off. There's also a practice called teeth clipping, where they essentially cut out the teeth in piglets, which is very painful. There's, it's horrific. I mean, when you see the undercover footage of this stuff, you can't believe that all this stuff is being done to fully conscious animals without any pain relief. It's very sad. In the poultry industry, they chop off their toes, they sear off their beaks. It's awful.
I'm with you. I mean, I'm not where you're at. I hope someday to get there completely.
We'll get you.
I'm getting there. With all the animals that my wife and I save, it draws even more because you see the abuse that are in these animals and the rehabilitation that we do just before we either find them a forever home or, have to, move them to a rescue. It's just sad. And you just think to yourself, and I'm willing to do this on a daily basis, but then I'm okay with what I'm eating, knowing that they probably went through worse. And that's the draw.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point.
And it's a hard part. It's a hard part to it. Now, I know I had mentioned it, but I'm going to, again, mention it so we can kind of go over it as genetically manipulated. I know that was mostly chickens as far as I know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to find out that there's more than just chickens.
Well, animals, as like I said, like more meat, more profit, right? Mm-hmm. So over the years, what animal farmers have done is they've genetically bred animals to grow very big, very quickly. And all animals that are raised and killed for food are slaughtered at a fraction of their natural lifespan. So, for example, cows, if they were just left to live out their lives in peace, would live anywhere from 20 to 25 years. They're usually slaughtered at around, well, if you're talking dairy cattle that's slaughtered after they're considered spent by the industry, at around 4 to 5 years. Chickens that could live anywhere up to, like, let's say 10 years if they were just left to their own devices. Their chickens raised for meat specifically are slaughtered just after several weeks. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about, and when you think about, they're bred to grow so quickly that in that short time, they're already at full size. And the sad thing is you see in the undercover videos that we've released, you see that chickens have all sorts of health problems because they're growing so quickly that they have deformities, they have cracked bones, they can't walk, they're lame, because their bodies are just too big. They can't support their own body weight. And this is the same that's true for pigs as well. And I've seen pigs who have been rescued at sanctuaries that were born into the factory farming system, and it's just so sad. I mean, they are just bred to grow so big that when they live out their lives, these poor animals can barely move because they're Franken animals.
Yeah.
They were never meant to be this big. So yeah, the genetic manipulation is a sad fact of the industry, and unfortunately, the animals suffer very painfully for it.
It's so wrong. I mean, obviously it's so wrong. That's kind of a duh. It shocks me. When I don't know how many videos I've watched over the years. I know I've seen a lot, and I continuously, almost think that I'm watching, in a sense, some kind of sci-fi X-Men type movie where I'm thinking this is mutants. We're just talking about mutants and, or Ninja Turtles where we put some ooze in and that's what it looks like. But no, that's real. And you're like, no.
Yeah, it is.
How is this possible? Yeah. And
we have genetically manipulated animals to create these, like I said, they're like, Frankenbirds or Frankenpigs. It's very, but I mean, it sounds funny when I say that, but when you actually see how these animals suffer because they've been bred to grow like this, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, it is.
And and we should really, the industries just need to, these practices are they're just devastating.
Well, look at Major League Baseball. We're so upset over any player that actually is on a PED, any kind of manipulating genetic, muscular, whatever, shot, pill, whatever. And we're upset about that because don't mess with a sport that we're only there to watch people run around all day. But we're okay with our food that's going to have even worse than a PED. It's the same thing, but it's worse. And I'm thinking to myself, how are we upset for that, but we're not upset for the other? It boggles my mind.
It's a good point.
It just drives me nuts. Now, because of all of these things that we're talking about, the mutilated animals, the genetic manipulations, the terrible conditions, is that the reason why these farms deny to have veterinary care come in? Because they don't want to be reported?
Well, veterinary care, veterinary care is expensive. And like I said, these farms don't look at animals the way that you and I look at animals. They literally reduce them to, to things, to meat producing things. Exactly. So I think that is why you don't see proper veterinary care being given on these facilities. Our undercover investigators have multiple times reported injuries, conditions to supervisors, and nothing has been done for these animals. So, yeah, I think that's why it's not the way, you or I would see a dog or a cat suffering and, take that animal to the vet and whatever. I don't think that they look at these animals the same way, which is really sad because, like I said, in terms of suffering, it's the same.
It's I see this in the world that I'm in it's a little bit the same, a little bit different. From the realm of, I see it with dogs and cats, you see it with farm animals. The common goal between both of them is they're considered the same than our animals. The problem I see is the difference between farm animals and dogs and cats, anything domesticated, is it's the same thing, and that is their property. At the end of the day, we look at, the law stipulates that they're just property. And I think that that's the problem. We treat this, I know there's a lot of farmers out there that treat their farm animals with the same love and compassion they do their dogs and cats and their loved ones at home. But I realize that there's that percentage that are just looking at it as, how much money can I get out of this? How little can I feed it? And how soon can I actually profit? And that's the problem.
Well, and I'd like to say that, like, for the farmers, like you said, that, we don't, I think there is a difference, because even if you were the quote-unquote best farmer in the world, you're still slaughtering animals. I don't, so it isn't the same. We would never obviously dream of one day, shackling our dogs and cats upside down and slicing their throats open.
Nope.
But that's what these farmers do at the end of the day. So I think the difference is, as people who live with animals, companion animals, we're looking out for the best interest of those animals. We're trying to take care of them. We're trying to provide them, a happy life for them. I do think that at the end of the day, if you are raising animals for food, even if you're providing, a decent, life, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're slaughtering these animals, it's certainly not in the best interest of the animal. I think it's, you're still profiting off of that. So I think there's a difference, and I think that sadly, over 95% of the animals that people eat come from these industrial farms.
Yeah.
So,
I know that one thing for a fact that has become a trend, and it's not just here, and it's not just the East Coast. It's also right there, right in your backyard in Los Angeles. Is a lot of people have pet chickens. It has become very, I hate to say, but trendy to have a chicken. They're treated really well. Yes, they produce eggs. You know where the eggs come from. You know exactly what the chicken is being fed. All in all, it's actually not a bad thing, and I kind of like it, to be honest. I would like to have chickens myself. And I know some people who actually have them and have a really nice coop for them. They have a lot of room to run, and it's kind of like their family pet. So I see progress.
I would counter only in that the industry that breeds chickens for that purpose, they're still killing males. So in the egg industry, and this goes for whether the eggs are coming from organic farms, from cage-free farms, free-range, whatever, males in the egg industry are killed very quickly after they hatch because they're considered worthless by the industry. And the methods, how they kill them, they're either ground up alive in macerators or they're suffocated in plastic bags. So there's still cruelty involved in the egg industry, which is why I just avoid it.
But we're talking about farmers. I'm talking about just regular people, everyday you and I type people who have chickens in their house. Not inside their house, but in their backyard.
Right.
And so for that, I mean, I see progress. I mean, maybe I'm the glass half full in this perspective, but again, remember, I'm not in the same position you're in. I'm not seeing it the way you're seeing it. So
Right.
It does make a difference. I mean, it's hard. I mean, trust me, at the end of the day, I get exactly what you're saying. We do need to stop the practices that are in. And it is, again, it's old school mentality. And we're in a realm, in a new world that is very new age. But that new age takes a long time to get over the old school mentality. So
yeah, I think we're getting there.
We're getting there. Yeah, we are. Well, my last thing I will ask you is, where can everybody, and obviously there's multiple places, but where can everybody kind of find out more about Mercy for Animals, check out the videos that we're talking about, and any details you want to give everybody to further their information past the podcast? Sure.
So first, our website, mercyforanimals.org, is a great place where you can check us out. We have in the investigations tab, you can see all of our undercover work and check that out. And please make sure to share that widely. And we're also active on many different social platforms. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Tumblr, we're on YouTube, we're even on Pinterest and Snapchat. So we are, if you want to find us, we're very easily found on no matter what social channel you're on. And like I said, our website as well.
And it is, it is definitely worth watching. I mean, it's an education right there. You learn so much and you cannot believe what's going in your stomach.
And I know that those videos can be difficult to watch, but I really do urge people to watch them because ignorance is not bliss.
No.
And once you see how the food you eat came to be on your plate, it changes you.
It does.
And I think that and like I said, start small if you don't want to, do anything that seems too drastic or whatever. Start small, and every change that we can make, it really does add up and make a difference.
It does. Well, thank you, Ari, so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Ari, so much for being on the podcast, and thank you guys for all that you do, whether it's an investigator, the legal, the corporate sponsorship. I really appreciate all that you do, and what's great about, the big thing that they want to do is educate, and that's what we want to do.
Exactly. If we can find some middle ground on the ethical treatment of the animals, and all because it is industry standard, doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
So, yes, it might be industry standard to put animals down the way they do. And I'm really watching what I say because we are out in public and I don't want to get a plate thrown at my face.
Oh, I don't mind. I like plates in my face.
But to change that portion of it, so at least it's done quickly and
humanely
and not agonizing. Where the chickens' beaks aren't taken off, where the male chicks aren't ground up live.
Yeah, I've seen those videos. They're disturbing.
They're disturbing, and I normally can't get through very far. I already know, and I'd start crying. I couldn't handle that stuff.
Well, I remember when I was going in for the job, they sent me, I think it was 3 videos, and they said, you're going to have to sit and watch those videos. And if you feel that after watching those videos that you can still do this job, then we can move forward. I knew it would change me, and I knew I would be unable to not reveal myself.
Right. I would be very violent.
Yeah, me too.
And wouldn't be able to control myself.
I couldn't.
No, I would much rather help them in a different way.
Yeah. And
I would much rather help the cause by being more mindful of what we're putting in our diet.
Right.
What was it? Friday, Thursday, or something like that?
Meat-free Monday. Thank you, Paul McCartney, for that song.
But there's a day that we had, I think it was Thursday, where we had angel hair pomodoro.
Right. I actually had salad for Friday.
Yeah, but the pomodoro was pasta and tomatoes. That's basically it, and some herbs and such.
Right.
So, okay, that's one way of doing it. Like you said, you just do a little bit. You don't have to, boom, I'm vegan.
Right.
And withdraw everything from your diet. But it's just being more mindful while doing so. Like, our mindful started with those videos, and we did research on which chicken brand was supposed to be the best.
Right.
So we did change. Instead of getting the $2 bag of chicken, we bumped up to the $10 bag of chicken that call themselves free range, and take extra steps to making sure that their chickens are healthy before slaughter.
Right, because you can definitely taste the meat is really...
It was the difference between tender and the difference between tight and...
gamey.
Yeah, and just tough.
Right.
It's unfortunate.
And look, this is just our way of educating, and we're not saying anybody has to go and follow our rules and our lifestyle.
Right.
It's just, you know what, we look around at our house, I mean, and as you're listening to the podcast, you may be looking at your dog or your cat and thinking to yourself, well, I wouldn't want my dog or cat to go through it. And if let's just say a farm actually was to do kind of a slaughterhouse of dog and cat, kind of like Yulin, you would think to yourself, well, is that standard practice how they're treating the dog and cat like they would a chicken or whatever? You would just think, no, that's not right. But,
right.
You know, we live
it's
in this...
like, you know, the farm animals don't have any soul, but a dog and cat do.
Yeah.
And there are a great portion of the United States where dogs don't have souls.
Right. Well,
and
everything's property.
Everything's property, and that's unfortunate. I get kind of conflicted because dogs and their dog food, they have to have meat in order to survive. The dog food that is out there that is meat-free, dogs aren't very healthy. I'll say that right now. So it is a fine line to go in between, all right, dog needs it, but we don't because we can get in other ways and still be perfectly healthy.
Right.
So then it's like, okay, well,
look at Raw Diet.
Let's get the industry standard up.
Right.
Let's get the fact that there are better ways of slaughtering than what they're doing. Because if it's not instantaneous, it's wrong.
I'm not going to say you're wrong because that's what I think. Like I had said, you have the old school mentality, and I think we need to adopt and adapt to a new age where we don't have this old school. It's just the practice.
Well, just like Ari said, we already know that there are such thing as animal depression, and animals do go through
psychiatric or
psychological.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been up since 5.
I know. But they go through heavy depression.
Yes.
My keto went through heavy depression when we had to give him to a friend. There was many different things that shows, oh, well, Oliver's kind of not himself. I wonder what's wrong. And we go from there. It's always the first sign on whether or not a dog or cat's okay is how they're acting. Well, why doesn't it turn into this? And then with the farm animals, why aren't these farm animals healthy before we eat them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a takeaway.
Disgusting.
That's the part that we all should be taking away. Is
these things aren't healthy.
We're feeding not only ourselves but our children this. I mean, that's not good.
Yeah, the growth hormones that they put on them to make them grow so much quicker. What? You're kidding me, right?
And, look at the videos. I mean, this is not just something that's, propaganda that's being spewed out there in this, I use the word, and it's the best word, fake news. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's actual news. I mean, it's not even news. It's real fact. You watch these videos, you're like, oh my gosh, that's happening?
Yeah, the gag order for
That's my takeaway.
Oh my gosh, you can't do that now in Arkansas. So that means no matter what, in Arkansas, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, you can't go on there and film. Yeah. I mean, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is what our actual lawmakers are doing. They're protecting these criminal farmers from doing it. I'm sorry, but you're a criminal.
And what sucks the most too is that people, they want cheap. They want cheap food. They want cheap clothing. Everything they want cheap.
No, they want expensive.
No, they want cheap. The majority of life, they want cheap. So how do you get cheap? You go cheap on your slaughter.
Well,
you go cheap on your animals. You go cheap on everything. So therefore, you can sell more to make more because everybody doesn't want to pay for more.
People love the expensive stuff, but they want it for cheap. They want something that's, the very nice name brand, but they want the top name brand.
I mean, there's small amount of people that want that.
Yeah.
But the majority of people out there cannot afford that.
Right.
And they can't afford, free range, organic chicken, cage free, all that. Sorry, sit down. You're Claire's throwing me off here. So the people who can't afford it still want to have the meat, still want to have the steak, still want to have their chicken. So they go and buy cheaper. They go buy the Tyson. They go buy the Great Choice at Walmart. And in order for them to make any money, they have to slaughter cheap. They have to raise cheap.
Larger, more animals, smaller areas. Yet they have large barns, but the conditions are cramped. I mean, I've seen a dairy cow hung by its back legs.
Yeah,
and it wasn't for any other reasons besides because we can't. I'm like, this is not practice that I want to be any part of. That's another part that really is hard for me. We really don't know what farms we're getting our food from. So we could be getting our food from a farm that we would never buy from.
Yeah, if we were to walk through, we would be like, no, pass.
It's not like going to, I buy name brand product or I buy store brand. You have the choice. You know what you want to have. When you buy anything that's dairy, you buy anything that's meat, anything in this realm, you're not sure where it's coming from. So you can't just say, well, I'm just going to avoid that farm. All this stuff is all kind of closed away, and that's kind of my part. It's like, well, if I don't know where it's coming from, how do I avoid it? Well, there's only one way of doing it. Now, again, this is just, food for thought. No pun intended, but, there it is. Anything you want to add? Because you hit mine. My takeaway was I couldn't believe that the gag order.
Well, I wanted to reiterate, I meant to go look that up and I got kind of sidetracked, the website on trying to find...
I don't have it, but there's plenty of vegan recipes that are out there.
I have it right here, if you just give me just a second. Okay. ChooseVeg.com.
ChooseVeg.com?
Yes. I'm looking forward to going through and picking out some new recipes because I'm tired of what we're eating, and we've already pretty much cut out all beef from our diet. For one, to me, it doesn't even taste good.
You know what? The last time I had a burger, I took a couple bites out of it, and I was just like, I can't do this. I didn't feel good.
With burgers, I get the gristle stuff.
I threw away a whole burger. My last one, I'm like, that's
like
it.
He said, there's other stuff that mimics the texture of meat, and I'm looking forward to finding those. And by the way, you said you haven't seen Whole Foods in how many years?
7.
That's a lie.
Is there one in St. Louis?
There's one in St. Louis next to the Brentwood Mall.
Okay, but I haven't been in it in a long time.
So
like,
close enough. You lie.
Oh, I would live in a Whole Foods. I would live in one. Literally live in it.
Part, just be more conscientious when you go to the grocery store, when you're looking up new recipes. There are ways, and I will never be able to go 100% vegan myself, but I'll tell you what, I'm changing the way we shop, the way we prepare food.
Well,
And you never know, we might just be to the point where we just weed out all meat in general and just like, what's the point?
it's kind of hard when you're saving animals' lives and you're looking at their eyes and you're trying to help them, and you realize there's the same eyes that you're looking at are in a cow or in a chicken
And
or in a
it's
turkey.
Only people don't
Or in a
give the
lamb.
same. They don't give the same to either.
Or a pig.
You know, it's, come on. There's the soul there. It needs to be taken care of.
Right. Alright, well, by that sound, Claire has turned on the applause sign, so that means that we're going to continue our busy day somewhere else. I am your co-host, Chris Green. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and thank you, Ari Solomon. And to all of you, have a pet-tastic week.
And I'm Sarah Green, making sure everybody realizes life is short. Play with your pet.
Threw you off a little bit?
Yes.
Haha. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go, it's my bedtime.